Thank you. I'm really happy to announce our next speaker, Ben Weast. So part of our patient and family support program provides a lot of support and counseling, not just to melanoma patients, but many patients within the Cancer Center. And so he's going to talk a little bit more, kind of shifting from maybe some of the physical side effects to talking more about kind of coping with melanoma diagnosis. Thanks, Ben.
All right. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. Here at the Cancer Center, I'm what's called a medical family therapist. And I work with a team of medical family therapists to provide counseling support to patients and their families. And we work through Duke Cancer Patient Support. And what our program has done for about 15 years is we provide this kind of counseling support at no cost to the patients and their families. And we do that by raising funds on our own, and that way the more funds we raise, the more of these types of services we can provide. And later in the slideshow, I'll talk a little bit more about all the services that are provided through Duke Cancer Patient Support. Our approach is a family systems approach. So what that means is whenever I get involved with a patient, I get involved with their family, their caregiver network, however that's put together. Because when there's a diagnosis, and I work with lung cancer, sarcoma, melanoma, and cancers of the head and neck. I work with those populations. So whenever there's any kind of diagnosis like that, it impacts the patient for sure, but it impacts the family as well. I wanted to just read this particular excerpt from the wife of a patient with metastatic melanoma. This is a younger couple, and when I walked in the room tonight and looked at my audience, I thought, well, the feelings are the same. It doesn't matter because the diagnosis does what it does. Here's what she said. My husband has metastatic melanoma and my first baby is autistic. I'm angry, I'm hurt, and I'm sad. My faith and depression are in constant battle. He struggles with the same thing. We don't coexist very well right now. He says, I'm mean-spirited, and I feel he is so focused on staying alive that the boys and I have slowly shifted out of focus. But if we both choose to love each other unconditionally, along with prayer and patience, I think we'll be okay. This is the patient. I know my wife loves me, and I know she doesn't want to cut and run. But I have to say, these days, the tension is palpable. We struggled and are struggling with our finances. My wife told me last night that she was upset with me because she felt I didn't exert my best effort. I didn't work hard enough on the job front. What did I hear? You don't work hard enough. You failed to provide for your family. I have to sell my jewelry and computers because of you. Because of my laziness, I put my family in dire straits. Now, I got involved with this couple and have been working with them for several years. That's just a snapshot of some of the feelings and some of the stresses that a young married couple can have when they've got all these other issues as well. And what I have found over the 10 years I've been here is that when people come into the Cancer Center with a diagnosis, they bring in with them family history. They bring in with them mental health disorders. They bring in with them all sorts of other types of layers, and that's what we're talking about here. Inside, outside the family system, there are stresses. For a lot of patients and families, what do I tell the kids? What do I tell the grandkids? What do I tell family and friends? How do I tell them? How do I deal with the cancer coming back? Finances, insurance, our dreams. It's quite common that I'll have patients come in, they just retired. They built their retirement home. They moved from New York down to Stone Mountain, Virginia. Everything's in place. Metastatic melanoma diagnosis. And so you're talking about dreams. Now they're trying to figure out what to do with those dreams. Systems stop functioning when one or more parts of the system is or are removed or changed significantly. Think about it. Your family is a system. When one part changes, when there's a diagnosis that comes into the family system, things change. And quite often, those family systems can grind to a halt. That's when you see communication patterns change. That's when you can see people really get at odds with one another. And so what I talk about with people and what I try to work with patients and families in doing is try to figure out what's going on. And this is something that our Duke Community Bereavement Center uses, and I borrowed from them, and it's called a grief wheel. And you might think, oh my God, he's talking about death. No, what I'm talking about is any change. Anytime there's a change in your life, there's grief that goes with it. When there's a marriage, and the daughter or the groom, they walk down the aisle, everybody's ecstatic, they're happy. Later on in the evening, dad or mom sits down on the edge of the bed and starts crying. They're happy, but things have changed. And anytime there's a change, there's grief that goes with it. And anytime there's grieving, you have these kinds of feelings and phases that people go through. If you look up here, just like when you were diagnosed, some of the feelings and needs that you had initially. And then I work with people as they go through these, and this word's upside down because it's a circle, but really that's what disorientation is like sometimes. You feel completely upside down. I have people sit in my office and say, it's like turning a cup down on the table and it all spreads all over the table. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm completely disoriented here. And so we work through that. And so a lot of it then is finding out how to reorient yourself. I thought these two quotes were really telling here. Mary Shelley, who's the author of Frankenstein, she was married to Percy Shelley, the British poet. She said these two things. Nothing is so painful to the human mind as a great and sudden change. And likewise, nothing contributes so much to tranquilize the mind as a steady purpose, a point on which the soul may fix its intellectual eye. There are many components of stress, in my experience from supporting patients and their families, but it's the uncertainty that is the most difficult piece in the experience that seems to intensify the stress. How can we lessen the sense of uncertainty and thereby lessen the intensity of the stress? And those two quotes that nothing is so painful as this sudden change, but nothing is as settling as figuring out what to do in response to that sudden change. So it's overwhelming. How do you keep things from disintegrating? Negotiate. You might say, well, why would negotiation be a part of this process? But it is. When you look at the definition of negotiation, it's to find your way through a challenge, particularly by utilizing dialogue and discussion, whether it's internal, external, within, or outside of the family. For the sake of time, what I've noticed over the years is that we want to control everything that we can. And what that uncertainty does is it strips away control. And I have to figure out how to regain control. Now, as a therapist, what I see so many people doing when they come into something like this is they resist support. I can handle it. I don't need anybody else to get involved in my business. And what we deprive ourselves of is building resilience. And you hear resilience thrown around a lot. There's a lot of books written about it. But fundamentally, to me, what it means is learning how to be flexible. You think about what happened when you got your diagnosis. Think about how you had to adjust one step at a time to the changes that came along. The diagnosis and the uncertainty of it, the treatment plan, the finances, what am I going to do with my family, what are we going to do with our plans, and on and on and on. And people sometimes, they become overwhelmed with that. And so part of building resilience is negotiating your way forward by dialoguing with people who can help you and by identifying who those people are. Identify what your needs are after the diagnosis. A lot of people don't know what they need. So that's where you sit down and you begin to, with your spouse or your partner or whoever the person is, you have a discussion about what do we need? What do we need here? Do we need child support? Do we need financial support? Do we need logistics? Do we need counseling support? What do we need? You identify, and probably to me one of the most important pieces here is what are your values? What are your principles? What do you believe about your life and about going forward? Because those principles, that's how you make your decisions. You identify the availability and strength of your support system. There's some people, it's a single parent with 2 children. I had a phone call with a lady today. There is nothing else in her family system. It's just her and those 2 children. So how are they going to make their way through it? And there are other family systems where this becomes a golden opportunity for all that dysfunction that's simmering under the surface to be healed, and people can come together and support one another in a way that historically they haven't. So part of that is the continual dialoguing. Part of it is being willing to entertain alternative solutions to challenges and problems. So after 20 years in the ministry and 10 years here, what I've found is that those patients in family systems who access support navigate their way through this in a much healthier manner than those who won't. It seems obvious, but there are a lot of people who won't access that service. Now here at Duke, what we have, and this link here will take you to our Duke Cancer Institute Supportive Care Survivorship link and site. That will give you all the support resources that are here at the Cancer Center for patients and their families. I have back on the table a list of support groups. There's a monthly calendar that's put out in the Cancer Center that highlights every support resource that we have. What else here? That just tells you, in a lot of words, a medical family therapist helps you negotiate the systems that you're involved with in your family, in this medical center, as you go through this treatment process. Here's a list of our therapists that we have here for all the disease groups. This is a list of how we get referrals so that we can be involved with patients and their families. We have support groups that are on-site, off-site, mind-body, art therapy, specialty groups. My colleague and I started a support group for patients and a support group for caregivers up at the Tier House back in March because the support groups at the Cancer Center were not being attended very well. We did a survey. People said, love the Cancer Center, beautiful place, but if I'm not here to see my doctor or get my treatment, I'm not coming back. I said, okay. So what we have, 5:30 to 7 o'clock, every third Thursday of the month, there's a patient support group for patients with different kinds of cancers, and there's a caregiver support group. The first third Thursday in March that we started, we had 6 patients and 6 caregivers. The one we did back in September, I had 24 caregivers, and there were 20 patients. People are coming because it gives us, I just put a bunch of chairs out in a circle. We eat with food on our laps, and then we just start talking. And you just be amazed at what that kind of support will do with people, for people. And these are other, we have a sexual health clinic we have here. We have all sorts of things that we do to help people accommodate what's going on in their lives. Finally, adaptation, survivorship. Adaptation, a change or the process of change by which an organism or species becomes better suited to its environment. This is a biological definition, but it fits today's discussion. It's akin to resilience. This process challenges patients and families in ways like nothing else can. And so what I find is with support and with time, people adjust step by step. They learn to reimagine what their lives are. They're not just a cancer patient. They're more than that. And with that reimagination, they adapt. They become the same people, but they become different people. Not just the patients, but the families and the family systems. So this is really what coping with melanoma is all about, in a nutshell, is identifying what your needs are, accessing the support that's readily available to you, and then engaging that support for as long as you need it. Thank you.